This is why Graham and I are now in America, because we're going to work in America rather than...
Yeah.
We don't think the creative arts in the UK are really
Russell
fostering...
Brand has departed for places unknown too, into the United States for exactly the same reason.
Well, exactly. But I mean, we've...
Hopefully not exactly.
No. We've ended up in this situation, I suppose I should clarify, because Rob Schneider is setting up a new company with myself and another producer I've worked with a lot called Martin Gourlay. And we've brought Graham in as well, because Graham's in a similar situation. We're all over in Arizona. We never expected to be here. We're working on various projects now. And I genuinely don't think it's an exaggeration. It sounds histrionic, but I don't think we could have the kind of artistic freedom in the UK now.
I haven't written in 5 years. I haven't written comedy in 5 years. I had to write my memoir for free, basically, to be paid a bit on the back.
I don't think it's histrionic. Like I think people will think it is. A substantive amount of creative freedom and a certain amount of like supportive social infrastructure in order to think creatively, because you really have to be free to think creatively, because it's risky, and you're going to transgress against boundaries explicitly and implicitly, because while you're casting about for humor, you're going to go too far from time to time, like obviously.
Yes.
You know, and you know too that the best comedy is the closest it can possibly be to being offensive without quite managing it.
There's a great phrase in Seinfeld writer has, he says, laughter is a very strong spice. Mm-hmm. So if you can make someone laugh at something, then they probably will forget to be offended.
Have you noticed though, Graham, that the shift within the comedians, well, you've noticed more than most, but within comedians themselves, I mean, I remember years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, there was a one club in London that had a document, a contract you had to sign, which sent out a list of the topics you couldn't discuss. Mm-hmm. And that was widely ridiculed within the comedic community. No one thought this was a good thing. Yeah. And now there's a club in London.
Now it's kind of standard.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's standard insofar as most clubs don't do that. Yeah. But the clubs that do, the few clubs that do, are not ridiculed. They're given awards, and they said this is the ideal now. And you also have more than a signed contract anyway. You have comedians kind of policing each other in a more surreptitious way.
There's only one kind of comedian that thrives in that kind of environment, and that's a mediocre comedian. You know,
exactly.
I call them regime comedians. Mm-hmm.
That's a great phrase.
Well, they're also thrilled about the regime because it's the only... See, one of the things I've noticed about woke books, especially the ones for children, is the illustrations they're absolutely hideous.
Yes.
They're talentless, dull, and like... They're monstrous in their incompetence. They're so bad. Well, the only possible reason you got to illustrate that book and have it published is because it has the right political message. Because no one in their right mind would look at a drawing that you made for more than 2 seconds without turning aside. And so you see the same thing is that this is certainly one of the things that I saw in universities, and it was awful, is that ideological purity was the best possible camouflage for appalling mediocrity. It's like, well, I can't do what I'm supposed to do, but I can certainly toe the bloody party line. And if you need an enforcer, well, here I am, partly because I have nothing better to do, or nothing that I would like to do more, which is even worse.
Yeah.
But what's great about all of this is none of this really ever caught on with the audiences. Insofar as I think generally, even though when you go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival now, most of the shows you go and see will be lectures dressed up as comedy shows, sermons in disguise.
I was supposed to do a gig and they closed every venue that I tried to do.
Yes, I remember that. When I was,
It was just unbelievable.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, you can see here, I'm not like,
you're not evil.
I'm not rude or anything. I try and put myself across carefully.
Wait until the beast will be unleashed later.
Oh, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But like basically this picture has been built of me. The way I describe it is that I'm the victim of village gossip on a global scale.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like my Wikipedia page. The thing it puts at the front is that I once compared gender surgeries to Nazi experiments on children. But it's like That's
not so much a comparison as an identity, I would say. I'm serious. Like, I've looked into medical atrocities a lot and into the psychological motivations of the people that commit them. And I don't think the only things that I've read, and I truly believe this is the case, the only things I've read on the medical side that are worse than what the trans surgical butchers are doing right now are the experiments conducted on the Chinese by Unit 731 in Japan. Right. And that is like for everyone watching and listening, do not go and read about Unit 731. You will seriously regret it. And that is the only trigger warning I've ever offered publicly or to my students. And I mean it, so beware. But that comparison is entirely apt. It's entirely apt. And so...
Well, the first vaginoplasty was performed by a guy, I think his name was Gerhardt, who was in the Luftwaffe and performed hypothermia, is that how you say it? Experiments on prisoners at Dachau.
That's Unit 731 territory right there. Because that was what they specialized on.
That's the first vaginoplasty. And now they're just practicing it everywhere on mentally unstable people, on people who have autism, on people who have depression.
Even the intervention of puberty blockers, I mean, even that isn't justifiable. If you're saying that we all have a gender identity, something we cannot define, some esoteric essence within ourselves, and you're blocking the puberty of a child on the basis of that pseudo-religious belief. I mean, that's already unjustifiable on any metric, I would have thought.
Assuming you accept the principle of non-contradiction, and we're way past that. It's like, gender is entirely fluid and it's divorced from sex, except in the case of children who are confused about their gender, who have to be surgically transformed into the opposite sex.
Yes.
Like, I see. So I'm supposed to accept all of that, including the logical impossibility, to say nothing of the absolute bloody barbarism that's part of the surgery. I mean, those surgeries, it's no wonder Schellenberger wouldn't believe it, because you don't want to know anything about those surgeries. Once you clamber into the dismal realm of their actual reality and the side effects, and oh my God, and the absolute foolish and preposterous notion that surgeons are capable of creating something as complex as a vagina or a penis. The bloody things barely work when you have one that's actually real. So, well, seriously, man, it's like, we're going to make one. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Well, you know, in a lot of the photographs you see of the young girls who've had double mastectomies, we always see lots of tiny little scars along their arm. You know?
Right.
And you know the way they farm the skin from the arm to make the false penis? I once saw one of them, those false penises, and they had those little tiny self-harming scars all over them. So
that's about right.
This young woman was having a fake penis that would never work, that they put in through the side. I think they have to come in from above to create the hole that the fake penis goes into.
Jesus.
You know, there's a young girl.
That's the stuff of body horror.
It is. It's like one of the other things I got in trouble for early on, and I said, this is a Cronenberg movie. This is medical horror and body horror.
Definitely.
You know, and all these kids are not being told any of the consequences of puberty blockers.
I talked to Chloe. I don't remember Chloe's last name at the moment, but she was one of the Cole. Yes, one of the very early desisters. Let's say, a very nice girl and very straightforward. And the interview I did with her devolved quite quickly, or evolved into essentially a clinical interview, because I was interested in what she had been told prior to embarking on puberty blockers and hormonal transformation, and then ultimately at a very young age surgery. And I asked her, so it's well known in the psychological community by anyone with even a modicum of training that negative emotion increases in women when they hit puberty. So if you measure levels of negative emotion, which include bodily self-consciousness, by the way, in boys and girls, they're pretty much the same. But once they hit puberty, women are more sensitive to negative emotion than men, and they stay that way for the rest of their life. And so there's various theories about that. One is sexual risk. One is the difference in body size that emerges between men and women at puberty, because boys and girls are about the same in strength, but juvenile adolescents obviously aren't. Certainly men and women aren't. And of course, sex is way more dangerous for women, obviously. And maybe the world as such is. Plus, they have to take care of infants. So they're more sensitive to negative emotion. And in women, more than in men, negative emotion tends to take the form of bodily shame and self-awareness. And there's all sorts of reasons for that as well. Maybe one of them being that women are judged more harshly on their looks than men are. And it's a big difference. Anyways, this is well established, and no one who's trained is unaware of it. Women have more anxiety disorders, more depression worldwide. These are cross-culturally stable findings. Everyone knows this. And it's known that it emerges at puberty. And I asked Cole, I said, well, you know, you were unhappy with your body. What she told me was she had fantasies of having a body like Kim Kardashian, very curvy, right? And she realized early on, correctly or incorrectly, it doesn't really matter, that she was likely to have a boyish figure. Now, she's a very attractive girl, and men have a very wide range of what would you say?
Types.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a wide range of feminine beauty. So there was no reason for her to be concerned on that front any more than any other girl might be. And I asked her if anyone had ever told her that an increase in negative emotion was common in puberty for girls, or that it often took the form of body dysmorphia, because that's extremely common in women, might even be the norm in pubertal women. It's extremely common. And those are the first things she should have been told. First two things. The third thing should have been, do you know that 90% of people with body dysmorphia, which is very common in puberty, desist by the time they're 18. They just, and that's been the standard approach for so-called gender dysphoria for like 4 decades. And again, no one remotely trained, doesn't know that.
Yeah.
She was told none of that.
Yeah.
20-minute bloody consultation session, and she ended up with a double mastectomy. And even more fun, you might say, is that the surgical scars on her breasts never healed properly.
Yeah.
So that's her life, and compared to someone who's had a reconstructed penis, she got away lucky.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thing to say. And so, yeah, it's
someone I heard from Stephanie, I think her name is Stephanie, that when these mothers who have had double mastectomies and gone on to have children, when the baby cries, there's still fibers from the breast muscle in their chest, and it reacts and it hurts them when the baby cries, but they can't do anything about it because
Wow.
they've cut off their breasts because,
Well, the surgeons will reassure the girls that you can always have new breasts installed if you change your mind. That's one of the marketing ploys of people who are promoting this absolute bloody.
Didn't one person, I can't remember who said it, but one person said your breasts would grow back.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but there's all sorts of kooks in this movement as well. It shares with
the a priori presumption should be not only kook, but what would you say, manipulative, narcissistic, and malevolent kook.
Opportunists. It just goes I always think about the line of men outside the courtroom going into the Giselle Mercure. Is that her name, Mercure? Giselle, the woman who's raped in her sleep, her husband.
Right.
I always think about that line of men going in, and I just think, well, that's opportunity. And we all think that we're all kind of good, but there's always going to be men who, if you move the line a little bit, they're going to follow the line.